Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast from the WELT studios. Caleb Hatch with you. Justin Kinney from the Kinney Chateau joining us via telephone. Hello, Justin.
Yeah, we decided to go to our summer home this weekend, enjoy last vestiges of summer. I was going to tell you I'm live from D.C. as I continue to try to work out the details of this D.C. IndyCar street race, but nothing that flashy. I'm home with our 2-year-old who loves Wheel of Fortune, so if you hear some yelling and screaming and jumping in the background, he is excited about watching Wheel of Fortune.
I can hear the sound of the wheel spinning in my head as you said that in the do-do-do-do sound. So there are a lot of good sound effects from that show. Now, it's Ryan Seacrest who took over for Pat Sajak, right?
Yes, and we have a stockpile on YouTube TV of just because we set it up to tape the new ones and the old ones on Game Show Network, so we must have 300 episodes stockpile. So we just turn one randomly on and we start solving the puzzles, then we realize we've already seen that one. So we think we're really smart, but we're really not.
I'm always more of a Jeopardy guy than Wheel of Fortune. I'm terrible at Wheel of Fortune. It's hard. Like Jeopardy, I can at least clean up a category or two every now and then, but Wheel of Fortune has just never been my game. Yeah, no, it's hard. I never do well with that, but it's fun to watch. I always
tell people, when you turn on Jeopardy mid round or something, you're just dominating, and then you realize it's like Teen Jeopardy.
Yeah,
you should be dominating.
Yes,
but knowing my luck, I'd go on Jeopardy and just get a bunch of categories that I don't know. like English literature, and poetry, and stuff like that.
Art history.
Right, exactly. Give me some geography and sports questions. I could do pretty good.
Same. We will talk IndyCar and what is the 2026 IndyCar schedule. Well, we do not know, but we'll start with that because we're continuing to get more and more details on the schedule. First off, Adam Sterner reported the other week, I think we covered this last week, that it seemingly is an either-or, Washington, D.C. in 2026 or Mexico City in 2026. And Nathan Brown, with more details, IndyStar.com, talking about that plus another new wrinkle thrown in. Now, originally, Mexico City was going to fall sometime in the first half of the schedule. That seemingly is not going to happen. If it were to be on the schedule, it would be late July. At least that's what he had reported earlier. Laguna Seca, same day as the World Cup final. They'd go from World Cup final to IndyCar at Laguna Seca, followed by Mexico City. Well, now, with Mexico City seeming to be in limbo, we have Laguna Seca potentially moving to the finale to replace Nashville. So a lot of things at play here. Again, we know that they're going to open at St. Pete. They'll go to Phoenix the following weekend. Then after that, they'll go to Arlington. They'll take a break. And then Barber is expected to be March 27th through 29th. Couple weeks off, Long Beach, couple weeks off. That'll include the IMS Open Test. Then you have, of course, the Indy GP, Indy 500 qualifying, Indy 500 Detroit. And then from there, one would expect Gateway after Detroit, and then Road America, its typical date in, around the 20th or so of June, and Mid-Ohio, July 4th-ish weekend. But then after that, it's seemingly up for grabs. We know we have Markham confirmed in mid-August, but really that's where in Milwaukee Miles believed to be set for August 30th. But after that, things seem to be pretty much up in the air. And I think let's start with Mexico City or D.C. because I understand the draw of a Washington, D.C. street race. If they can pull it off anywhere near the National Mall, right? That's going to look incredible on TV. Fox is pushing for it, reportedly behind the scenes. But it just kind of makes you wonder, that's probably going to be a one-off event, right? So that's, I think, my concern in all of this.
So many different angles for this. First of all, I know there's some people out there that are incredibly anxious and what's taking so long. It doesn't really bother me. I don't know about you, that the schedule's taking so long to come out. if it's a banger of a schedule, if they can make some of these events happen, one of these events happen, there's no major gaps in the schedule, then who cares? It's not like we're buying tickets tomorrow for these races. So to me, take all the time you need if you're IndyCar to make this thing as solid of a schedule as possible. I know we're kind of on different ends of the opinion because with DC. I am fine with DC being a one-off because when you talk about impact for IndyCar, there is nothing bigger, in my opinion, in the United States for a racetrack somehow around the nation's capital. I'm still doubting that it could happen, but we also see the same thing about Chicago. I'm fine with it being a one-off. It coincides with the 250th birthday of the United States. So I can see why that's a priority for 2026 and then going to Mexico for 2027. We talk about growth of this series in the United States and what needs to happen and banger events, and DC would definitely check that box. Ideally, it would be nice to have both places, but if I had to choose, because DC, like you said, it's a one-off. If it doesn't happen next year, it's probably not happening at all. So I would rather have it next year in Mexico in 2027 if need be, because it just sounds like at this point, I'll be surprised if Mexico happens for next year, let alone any time, because it's been so long rumored and you can't figure it out. So, and also too, IndyCar is probably like, look, if we have to pump a lot of money into DC, we're not going to also pump a lot of money into Mexico for 2026. So that's kind of my opinion on that. I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, look, in a perfect world, if they do DC, and we both expect that to be a one-off, right? That's not going to be a long-term play. It's kind of like NASCAR running at the naval station on Coronado Island. That would be a one-off, and that's great, especially if the location is great, a.k.a. anywhere near the National Mall. I think you get excited about that, and how could you not be? Visuals would be incredible. The crowds would be big. It would be a really good event. My fear is they somehow pull off this DC race and Mexico City doesn't happen and say, oh, we'll get to it in 2027, but we both know that's probably not going to happen, right? If it's not going to happen next year, I don't feel like it's going to happen anytime soon. And I guess that's my fear, is I would rather have a 3-year contract with Mexico City than a one-off with DC, which I think a lot of people would probably disagree with me on that take.
And I get it. I get the angle on both sides, for sure. In a perfect world, we all get what we want. We get both races.
That's not on the table, though. It's an either or.
Well, we're not getting that, right? That's this is IndyCar after all. The best we can hope for is a half victory. But I appreciate the aggressiveness of Fox in trying to make something absolutely huge happen. And I hope that IndyCar is in a position to financially front the bill, or at least some of it, of what would be an astronomical cost in terms of having to do everything you need to do to make that happen, that race happen. It just sounds like, and this is kind of what I'm waiting for, is we know Mexico is a hang-up. But what is hanging it up? Because we don't get really a complete story of why.
Well, it seems to be Live Nation getting, majority share of the track.
Yeah.
And they're asking for terms that are unreasonable compared to before. At least that's what they're telling Nathan Brown.
Is it an indication, too, with NASCAR not going back, is not even NASCAR wants to play games with them in terms of maybe the cost, or the cost to put on the event compared to what the return is going to be. So I kind of get it. So, for me, there's so many different angles of this. We'll just have to see how it plays out, but hopefully we get an answer sooner rather than later.
Yes. And then the other factor, look, we know that Fox is really pushing for DC, but then the other thing at play that we talked about is Nashville moving, and Nathan Brown saying it could move into one of those late July slots that they were originally going to have for Laguna Seca and for Mexico City. And unless it's going to be a Sunday night or Saturday night race for Nashville, nobody's going to show up, and that's going to effectively kill that event, right? I mean, that's the issue here.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talk about the IndyCar's season going out with a whimper. You're making it even worse by ending your season at Laguna Seca if that even comes to fruition. So we went from a NASCAR. So within a couple years, we went from a Nashville street race, right, to a Nashville oval, to now potentially Laguna Seca, and we're going in the wrong direction when we talk about season finales, right?
Now, if you ask IndyCar team owners and sponsors and those types, they would be thrilled with Laguna Seca, right? Because it's a great setting. So? You can entertain sponsors. But here's the thing. I feel like you can entertain sponsors in Nashville. You're going to draw the same crowd or bigger in Nashville compared to Laguna Seca, even though Laguna Seca did look noticeably improved this year. But Nashville slightly down from last year. Bruce Martin, Forbes.com, who covers IndyCar, had a story that came out saying that Nashville got 40,000 for the weekend, which I'm crunching the numbers and still finding hard to believe that number. That would mean they got 30,000 for the race, which they didn't, and then 10,000 on the Saturday, which I'd buy 5,000. I don't think I'd buy 10,000. But either way, the attendance was slightly down, but still, look, if they're saying it's 40,000, that's probably better than I would have guessed. I don't necessarily buy the number, but we never do when it's a street race either, right? I mean, it's always like, cool, great number, but how'd you come up with that? Yes, they're counting every team official, series official, pretty much anyone on the premises.
Crew member.
Yes, anyone on the premises for those numbers. But
if you happen to fly over the track at any point, you're counted.
Yes, they'll count the staff of the blimp or whatever. But you look at Nashville, and I mean this.
Drive by the exit, you're counted.
Yeah, if you look at Nashville, and it feels like something that could be built there. And Penske Entertainment, according to Nathan Brown, because there was some confusion, right? We were told that they didn't have the rights, and it went back to Scott Borchetta, and now they do own the rights, and they promote it. But Scott Borchetta, who's obviously he's got the title sponsor with Borchetta Bourbon, very actively involved. He's pushing back against Nashville losing the finale date, as you would expect. Joseph Newgarden was very complimentary on the TV broadcast of this. And Borchetta is still confident of going back downtown in a few years, which, I mean, I have my doubts. The fact that they pulled it off the first time was incredible, but either way, you go from a city that is Midwest adjacent. Yes, Nashville is not in the Midwest, as we very much know on this podcast.
But I apologize. Still apologize.
It is in the South, but it is a 5-ish hour drive from the core of your fan base, which is Indianapolis. So it makes for a fun weekend. It's a good event, whether it's the street course or the road course. I'm fine, or street course or oval. I'm fine with either one. But going to Laguna Seca would feel like a downer, and I understand West Coast fans would be bummed. But look, like, you want to go, and I guess this is the conundrum. IndyCar sees Laguna Seca as a great place to entertain sponsors, potential sponsors, bigwigs, etc. Right? Beautiful setting, Northern California, just off the ocean. Like, it's picturesque. The racing's not great. We all know that. Maybe as a season finale it would be, because guys would be driving for their jobs. Then compared to Nashville, where we've had great racing in 2 years, and it seems like you can build something there. It just needs that extra promotion and marketing to get there.
Yeah, and I'll kind of push back with the Laguna Seca. I don't know if that's, when we talk about sexy for sponsors and potential partners, and this is what IndyCar is all about. I think Nashville sells more than Laguna Seca, even at the Oval, because you can make a quick jaunt to downtown Nashville. But this is a battle that IndyCar has had for a long time, is just trying to find enough events that are wow events, right? And especially finding one that maybe you want to put at the end of the schedule. Nashville, as a street course, was perfect. I know some people were clamoring for an oval. I mean, you have an oval now as the finale, but in terms of atmosphere, in terms of felt like a event, Nashville Street Race delivered. But now you're kind of back into, okay, who wants to have the last race? And here's one thing too that I mentioned to you with Scott Borchetta. Like, he's one of the few guys, sponsors / promoters, that's very gung ho about IndyCar. And yeah, he may have, brought his sponsorship down a little bit in terms of not being all in, but he's enough in that he wants to continue with this event wherever it is in Nashville. Long story short, you can't afford to upset Scott Borchetta because he's one of your few people that are very much, hey, I want to promote this series and this sport in a major metropolitan area.
That's a good point. I mean, he's invested a lot, and this Nashville event, remember the first year it was on cable and it drew over 1 million viewers. Like, there was so much interest, right? It was astounding at the time. And yes, it did kind of fade away, and part of it, it rained, I think, the second year there, and they had some other issues, and then obviously with the track, they had to change it. But he is a guy, along with Jonathan Bomarito, in terms of individual, like, yes, you have Green Savory that promotes several races with Mid-Ohio and now Markham and Portland and St. Pete, but like, this is an individual who has invested a lot of time and money and effort to make it happen for IndyCar. And that compared to Monterey County or whatever, and investing and paying, and it's great that they pay the sanctioning fee and invest and promote, but I guess when you have someone who is passionate about racing and has invested a lot into it, like you said, keep them happy.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like if you had an Arlington, for example, that said, we want to be the season finale. Now, that would never happen because it's 1 million degrees in Arlington in August, early September. But use that for an example. If there was a race, an event that wanted to be the season finale, that delivered with racing and optics and felt like a huge event, okay, I could understand telling Scott Borchetta, hey, we're going to do this. But you're going to Laguna Seca. Like, it's not that exciting. Yeah, you're close to the California coast and stuff, but it's not an event feel. That's why they have to keep showing replays of the pass every time we're there, because you got to fill time somewhere. But I just don't understand why you would make that move for Laguna Seca. I could understand doing it for a DC, for example, or a Mexico City, but I don't understand it for Laguna Seca.
I agree, and I hope that the executives at IndyCar come around to that, because it seems like they would rather wine and dine and then go to the Nashville Oval, which I understand, not as cool of a setting, but you have an event you can build on, and it's still close to the core of your fan base. Yes, there are a lot of IndyCar fans in California and the West Coast. Don't get me wrong, but I would venture to say you have a bigger opportunity to draw a bigger crowd by going to Nashville, oval or street course, compared to Laguna Seca.
And I said as recently as last week, I do think there is growth opportunities at the Oval in Nashville. Scott Borchetta does a great job. If we could get another couple major promoters, major advertisers, major sponsors involved with that event, I think it would raise the profile of the event and thus raise the attendance at the event. I just think it needs that added investment. I think it's in a good position to just yank the rug out from under it and move it to another part of the schedule. Just to go to Laguna Seca is kind of is odd to me.
Yes, I agree. It seems like IndyCar is getting in its own way here, which is something they tend to want to do for whatever reason. That just seems to be something they do. And then I guess the other thing, so Marshall Pruitt in this week's Racer.com mailbag to add on Mexico City, two people have told him, two people in the paddock have told Marshall that IndyCar in Mexico is on life support, which I believe, because I think this deal would have been done by then. I guess the one thing that would be a disaster is Mexico City or DC don't happen. Then what do you do? What's the fallback plan to add another race? Do you just do a double header somewhere? I mean, is that what they do to fill the gap?
Yeah, do you partner with NASCAR again for another oval? I don't know. I mean, when you look at Mexico, and we've obviously zeroed in on Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
If it gets pushed to 2027, do you look at a potential other spot for a race in Mexico? You look at places like Autodromo Monterrey. I don't know. So with the difficulties with Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for both NASCAR and now IndyCar, that doesn't necessarily have to be the only destination for IndyCar in Mexico.
Yes, it's the easiest and most turnkey. I don't think Monterey would be
Absolutely.
as turnkey. And then the Puebla Oval is not even an option because I don't think they have safer barriers. That's the other one, and I don't think they'd go there.
Correct, which is a problem.
I mean, in a perfect world, they'd pull off a Cancun street race.
Ooh.
Right?
That's why you're an idea man.
Yeah, that's my grand idea that will never happen, but it would be awesome.
I would agree.
So we go from schedule stuff. Anything else on the schedule that we're missing going into some silly season kind of rumors and speculation?
No, I don't think so. I just think overarching, there's still just a lot of balls in the air, so to speak, and I'm perfectly fine with this dragging into late August, September. I just want to get it right. And credit to IndyCar, which we rarely say, but it would be easy for IndyCar to just throw up its hands and say, look, we just got to get a schedule out, right? We'll do this, we'll add another race at the road course at Indy, blah, blah, blah. Let's just make sure we get it out. But there's no rush to get this thing out other than from certain fans. Just take your time, examine all avenues. Fox now is very much in pursuit of some big events. DC, obviously, the main one right now. Just exhaust all options before you settle. And I think that's kudos to IndyCar and kudos to Fox for at least trying to make things happen. When we first heard about the DC rumor, it was like, yeah, right. But credit to Fox, credit to IndyCar for saying, is there a way we could possibly do this in our nation's capital? And they're still trying. And I think in a lot of instances in the past, IndyCar and its partners would just not try because they would see the obstacles in front of them and saying, that's impossible. We're not going to do that. But they're not doing that for DC, and they're not really doing it for Mexico City. They're at least trying.
And that's a step forward. And I would agree on the schedule release. One, we're spoiled because last year the schedule came out in June. Second, we knew this would take time. I've said for a while, I think the schedule will be out by October 1st. I still feel fairly confident in that. I think they're just trying to wrap stuff up at this point. And I mean, look, the longer this gets delayed, the more we have to talk about because all the big stories seemingly broke last week for the offseason.
And hey, the longer it takes, on the front end it'll be difficult to fill, but on the back end, once it comes out, be like, hey, we don't have as long to wait as we usually do once this schedule comes out, right?
Yes, that's true. That's another good point with that. So let's go from schedule stuff to silly season stuff, and we'll start with confirmations. One, Stingray Robb, Nathan Brown reiterating, and Stingray Robb even replying that nothing's changed because Stingray Robb, and it's been reported otherwise, Brown says that he's inked a multi-year deal with Juncos Hollinger Racing. He'll return to the 77. And Stingray Robb said year 2 is all about continuity and momentum. Can't wait to get after it. Peter Rossi is the agent for Stingray Robb, or manager, and it seems like everything is locked in. In fact, a Racer article talking about Conor Daly, Peter Rossi said there is a 0% chance someone other than Robb would be in the 77 car next year. So that's confirmed. Also, Robert Shwartzman, who there are some rumors posted out there, and we've just said that there are rumors, but again, nothing concrete. He doubled down, and he's planning to stay in IndyCar, that he's happy in IndyCar. There's a lot of commentary that he wasn't happy and wanted to go elsewhere, but he has said, no, I'm happy in IndyCar. I'm not going anywhere. So that's a good sign there as well.
That's just a weird story because, Marshall doesn't go out and say stuff. Sorry, he's mad that the dog's eating his Cheez-Its. Marshall doesn't report something unless he has, at least a couple sources. So for him to come out and say that Robert Shwartzman was absolutely, miserable in IndyCar, it comes from somewhere. It's not just a message board on Reddit or something. And then for Shwartzman to come out and refute it so passionately is like, well, okay, then he's happy. He's like, I don't know what to believe. You know what I mean? I really don't, because Marshall Pruitt is an experienced journalist. You don't really put something out there unless you have some concrete info, and maybe it's just his sources were bad, but sounds like Shwartzman is happy in the United States.
Yes, which is good because he was fun to watch last season. So he expects to be back. That's good news there. There's still rumors on Prima. In fact, Marshall Pruitt said that he's heard a few Prima team members are looking for other jobs, but if Prima was going away, there'd be more of an exodus, which is a good point there on that. And then you have Conor Daly. I mentioned a Racer article on him, and he is still fighting to return with Juncos for next year. Obviously, they've excelled on ovals, need to make a jump on road and street course races, but he said he was happy with the car they gave him at the Indy 500, and so they were able to raise some money despite the loss of the Polka Dot sponsorship, which is something I think we kind of forgot about in season with that ride. He did said, what's really positive is all of our partners, all the sponsors that we were able to bring on, they want to be back with me. I have the most sponsorship right now I've ever had in my career, so I feel like we're in a good place. As good as a place you can be for where we are now in the offseason. So sounds positive for him returning to Juncos, or at least having the funds to get another full-time ride elsewhere.
Definitely. We talked about it last week in terms of what he's shown this past season on the track, particularly on ovals. And he's a marketable guy. He's a personable guy. I think sponsors like him. I think more and more sponsors have come around to him over the years. I don't know if it's necessarily as difficult for Conor Daly to find sponsorship as it used to be. Now he's just got to find a home. And could that be back at Juncos? I don't know right now. But is Coyne an option? Who knows? We'll see.
He's chatted with Foyt as well, a team where he previously raced. And then some other nuggets in the same story from Marshall Pruitt. So we thought that Rinus VeeKay was headed to AJ Foyt Racing, but now there's doubts that's going to happen. That could put him in play at Juncos and Ray Hall. And then Linus Lundqvist, former Rookie of the Year with Chip Ganassi Racing, in talks with Dale Coyne Racing, Juncos, and Ray Hall as well. And then, of course, plenty of former Lights drivers, F2, former F1 drivers, looking at other opportunities on the grid. So a lot of balls in the air in terms of seats available. But I think the other thing is the one thing I thought about this week that it was curious. So VeeKay, there's a lot of talk of him going to Foyt, and would he, essentially pick up the Penske satellite contract like David Malukas had. But you leave Coyne, where those cars actually got improved sponsorship for 2026. Rinus VeeKay has some personal sponsors, but it's nowhere near enough for a full season ride, right? So
right,
I was just kind of curious, like, if he doesn't land at Foyt, like, yes, I'm sure Ray Hall would be an option, but like beyond that, you pretty much have to bring a significant chunk of change if he doesn't land at Foyt or Ray Hall to get any of the remaining rides.
It's an interesting development because you don't leave a team unless you have another one lined up, right?
Right.
Which we just presumed that he was going to Foyt. But apparently he's not, or at least it's not as big of a slam dunk as we thought. So then you kind of look at Rinus VeeKay like, are you overplaying your hand? And I guess now for him, could he be in the same spot as he was last year where it took till the 11th hour to get a seat? So I don't know if this is a good move for Rinus VeeKay. I guess we'll find out through the course of the offseason. But it's an interesting development after what we assumed was a sure thing this time last week.
Absolutely. And then you throw in NTT Data is leaving Arrow McLaren at the end of 2026. They have an opt-out clause, and that obviously they didn't get Alex Palou in that ride. What's interesting is Nathan Brown of the story, IndyStar.com, nowhere in his story did it say they were planning to go to another team. Now, logically, if they were, you would think they'd go back to Chip Ganassi Racing, where they were for so many years. Obviously sponsored Palou for a couple of seasons and sponsored Felix Rosenquist. They joined back in 2013 as a one-off sponsor in the Indy 500 for Ryan Briscoe. So they've been with Ganassi a long time, right, as a full season sponsor, and you go back to when they first started in 2013. But nowhere in the article does it say, oh, they're going to just pick up and return. And this was an interesting sentence at the end of the story, right? It's always best to read the last sentence in any IndyCar-related story. NTT's entitlement sponsor deal with IndyCar is believed to run through the end of the 2027 season. So something to keep in mind with that. Yes, they've renewed previously, but just found that an interesting nugget to throw in at the end. I don't think you throw that in for no reason.
You hope that it's something that gets renewed this time next year. Mm-hmm. Maybe does IndyCar and Fox, to a certain extent, seek a bigger, higher profile title sponsor to the series? Is this the first step with NTT? If they don't attach themselves to another team, of which I would presume would be Ganassi with Alex Palou, is that a sign that NTT may not be interested in staying past 2027? Because they've always been a team sponsor in addition to being a series title sponsor. So that's kind of maybe something to watch and see if NTT is on any cars in 2026. You would hope so, but no indications right now that that's a sure thing.
Yes. I will be curious what happens with that. And then speaking of McLaren, they did announce at the same time partnership renewals with Mission Foods and Onsemi. And Bob Hockris had this. Mission worked with all the drivers on Semi, had been on the Siegel car for 4 races, but will move from a car branding deal to more hospitality-focused relationship. So, look, we talked about, Pato wanting Will Power as a teammate, and rightfully so. Who wouldn't? But perhaps with the sponsorship going away, that they just didn't. This sounds wild to say, but they didn't have the funds to truly pull it off, let alone the fact that Nolan Siegel is still under contract and brings money to the table.
Well, and you made the point, too, earlier this week when we were texting. Does this make the money that Nolan Siegel brings even more important? Does he get a longer leash at McLaren because of that? Past 2026, regardless of performance. But then we fall back on McLaren. They're one of the best teams in the paddock in terms of sponsorship and finding sponsorship and activation and all that. So does it affect them long term with NTT out, or will they have somebody else or somebody else's step up? So we'll definitely see.
We shall see. And then other silly season related news, this IndyCar adjacent, and that is some good news. And that is Juncos Hollinger Racing is returning to a series formerly known as Indy Lights next year after a couple years away. Expected to run 2 cars, and there will be some regulatory, technical, and schedule changes for Lights ahead of next season. There are going to be more double headers. Obviously, I would say that's a positive. And they're looking at a car count cap, but it's going to be fairly high. And from what I have read, Jaron Demindal, who covers IndyCar in the Netherlands, maximum of 24 cars, max 4 cars per team. Now, how does that work? You have 4 at Andretti, 4 at HMD, 4 at Abel, 4 at Ganassi as they're going to expand, 2 at Cape, which is in partnership with Andretti, 2 at Juncos, and 2 at Cusick, which is now Cusick Morgan Motorsports. And then he said 2 at TJ Speed as well. So that's how you get to 24, and it sounds like that will be a full grid, which, I mean, that would be phenomenal for that series.
It absolutely would, and it's interesting because this is kind of what we wanted for a long time with lights, right? Is just solid teams, several IndyCar teams involved, and now we have it, and you're kind of like, man, it doesn't leave very much room or any room for small teams or one-offs here or there and stuff like that if we have the cap. So it's kind of like, yeah, we got what we wanted, but at the detriment of something else. We've seen that in IndyCar, right, with the charters and just how expensive it is even for an Indy-only program, and these one-offs are evaporating outside of Dreyer and Reinbold traditionally. So while it's a positive, it shows that Next is continually being on firm ground. It's also, we kind of lose something in terms of teams showing up and racing a race here, a race there because of the cap.
Other changes, they'll make a change due to the transmission with supply concerns. They'll shift to 6-speed units from X-Track. Obviously, that's what IndyCar uses, as well as the spec transmission. They'll also have a new semi-automatic shifting system as part of the package. And then also the calendar. This is interesting. They could have more doubleheaders, as I talked about, and that could include Long Beach, which I don't think has hosted lights since, 2011, I believe?
Yeah, it's been a long time, 15 years.
So that's the last time I can recall, 2011, because I think Conor Daly and Joseph Newgarden raced in that race, and I think Newgarden won, if I'm not mistaken, and he was in IndyCar the next year, and I don't think they were back at Long Beach after that. So that would be a pretty cool event added in, and obviously more doubleheaders, and we'll know more about lights in terms of potential driver lineups, the Chris Griffiths Memorial Test on October 27th at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. So that's a look at some of the changes and news for lights as it pertains to IndyCar as well.
Do you feel, Caleb, that Juncos' return to lights is proof that they have potentially another investor? Because this is a team that has been seeking, and Brad Hollander in particular, seeking more capital. I don't know if Juncos Hollinger would invest, even though they all have all the equipment, they were only gone for a year, invest in lights without added capital. Am I reading too much into that?
I don't think you're reading too much into it at all. I kind of had the same thought. This would make you feel good if you are Juncos and a driver looking at Juncos that, hey, they're going to have more funding and they figured some things out on the financial side. Because, look, I think they dropped lights last couple years because they were trying to make IndyCar work, and I think they feel like they're in a good spot for the first time. And I think last year, I mean, yes, you could always use more sponsorship on Daly's ride, but he cobbled things together, made it work. Remember before the season how there are doubts of, okay, he can probably make it to the Indy 500, but what is it after that? And he kept cobbling together good sponsorship deals and made the full season work. Obviously, I'm sure they would take more money. And then Ray Robb, we know he comes with a lot of funding as well, and he's locked in for next year. So they're in probably the best spot they've been since they've had full time in the series, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I feel like when they got out of lights, it was concerning, especially with the discussion about funding, but them getting back into it. You don't restart your lights program if you're in dire financial straits. I don't think so, at least.
I would agree.
I think it's an encouraging sign.
I would agree. And then speaking of lights, a couple other quick notes. Those cars now in iRacing. Looks pretty cool. There's videos released. And then Tyler Wong cobbled together a lot of data, and I want to highlight the lights numbers. 37,000 viewers for practices, 57,000 for qualifying, 110,000 for races. Now, you look at before on Peacock where we never got numbers, but you're on an actual cable sports network. You're pulling over 100,000 viewers a race. You can't tell me that isn't helping in the growth of the grid and the growth of that series.
No, it's huge, and we never know what numbers to expect. And some of those numbers are small-ish, but compared to when you had to get on Peacock and stuff to watch, I mean, it's night and day. And I think, sponsorship, you saw a lot fewer empty side pods the last couple of years especially, but I mean this year in particular. And I think it's just a positive step forward. And now, similar to IndyCar, okay, here's the baseline of these numbers. Can we get these to grow heading in through 2026 and beyond?
All right, so that wraps up a lot of silly season stuff, schedule stuff. If you agree or disagree with us, especially on DC and or Mexico, let us know. We'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media, IndyCar Podcast, the handle on Twitter /X, also on Instagram, on Facebook, search for New Track Record. Email us your questions, comments, rants, concerns, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. All right, let's get to the mailbag. And before we get to a lot of comments on the schedule stuff, we have actually forgot to do Rate the Race for the final 2 races of the season. So I set a reminder. I finally remember. I have the data. We go back to Milwaukee. Now, if you can remember Milwaukee, how would you rate Milwaukee?
Vaguely remember. An 8.
Okay. I was going to go 8.5. We got 9.204, which I think is the highest. Again, stupid me should have saved all these numbers in like a note on my iPhone, and I just kept deleting the note every week, and I should have just compiled them all like you do with your random split air driver. But 9.204, that was the Rate the Race for Milwaukee. And then Nashville, how would you rate Nashville?
I had Nashville as an 8.5.
I had Nashville as a 9. Audience says 9.035 for Nashville. So there you go.
So spot on with your guys. So yeah, a couple really, really good oval races to end the season.
And I think another good reason to end with a couple ovals, right? I mean, the potential to, along with obviously Nashville's TV rating, which was over 1.1 million people, quite good. But either way, that's good on that aspect. Okay, so we dive into the mailbag, and we have actually a ton to get to this week. So let me go back to some earlier questions from some people, and we start. Here we go. So I talked about bringing coolers and whatnot in. Mom 2X over 2002 via Twitter. Courtney said, to be honest, it just depends on the track what you can bring in. Texas Motor Speedway, you can bring in a cooler. Gateway, you can bring in a small cooler. Most ovals allow a soft-sided cooler, maximum 14 by 14 by 14, which that's same size as IMS. Arlington GP won't be able to bring anything in. Yeah, street races, pretty much you never can. R. Cole had a couple of funny quips. No, not another track record. My 7-year-old son, when he heard the opening after his podcast ended, and said hashtag Team No Pickles. So he's on your side, Justin.
Okay.
Historic Hot Laps
we'll continuing the movement.
Commenting said, best part of the episode is knowing I'm not alone in my disdain for pickles. So there are a lot more of you pickle haters out there than I would have guessed. Quite surprised.
We are gaining in number.
Clearly.
And finally speaking out.
Snarky Moose, S2000_Moose, sent a couple thoughts. One, driver contracts expiring after 2026 could be tied to manufacturer contracts. Understanding was that all contracts between teams and manufacturers expired at the end of 2026. Excellent point. Just because of Honda.
Well, I'm sure for Honda drivers they expire at the end of 2026.
Also sent this. How many races would Will Power win? His personal street strength combined with Andretti's would lead me to think over. Which did we set it at 1.5 or 2.5?
I thought we set it at 2.5.
2.5, and I said
you would take
under.
The under at 1.5.
Yeah, it's just it's so hard to win in the series, and Power is really good, but he's not in the Palou, Pato Award, and I don't even know who to put in that Scott Dixon, I guess, camp. Like he's in the second tier. And then finally, from Snarky Moose, Cadillac isn't Colton's only in one options. Lots of contracts expire after 2026. He only needs 5 FP1 sessions for a super license. If he does well, Honda might want him for 2027, for example. Yeah, remember Honda's back in F1, along with Ford and several other manufacturers next year. Sounds like there is an F2 ride coming for Colton Herta. It's just not confirmed where it is, which we expected that. But Dan Tauris confirmed as much, talking at Monza as well. Other mailbag stuff. You talked about NFL King on Fall Sundays because Cup, 1.525 million viewers for Cup at Gateway last Sunday, down from 1.8 million for last year's second playoff race, which is at Watkins Glen, and 2.5 million for the 2024 event on FS1, but that was back in June. Lynn said not even the mighty NASCAR can compete with the NFL. This is why IndyCar fans, the season ends the weekend before week 1, need to start after the big game at the end of NFL. I agree with that. I would love starting the season. And you have this idea, so let's talk about it. You have an idea.
Yes.
For IndyCar on Super Bowl Sunday.
We've talked about this before about, hey, IndyCar should have a race on Super Bowl Sunday leading into the Super Bowl. And then I started thinking, well, where do you have a race where you're not reliant on a lot of people? Because people are going to be like, well, I don't want to go to a race and then try to get home in time for the 500, let alone travel to a race. Well, IndyCar is raced at a track where there's a lot of homes at Thermal. So why don't you start the season at Thermal, Caleb? Sunday afternoon, Super Bowl Sunday, people can, the rich folk can have a race in their backyard, then host Super Bowl parties. There's not a lot of people let in anyway. You are unfettered in terms of Sunday afternoon stuff. You may have a college basketball game or something like that. But, yeah, start the season, Super Bowl Sunday at Thermal, and end it Labor Day weekend.
This Cup?
There's your stretch for the season, and you get the season started on an opportunistic Sunday before the big game.
So the Super Bowl is February 8th next year, and I'm curious what the Cup schedule is for next year. They do not race then. They have the Cookout Clash February 1st, and then Daytona 500 isn't until February 15th. So, yeah, you're looking at a prime opportunity. You're not even racing against NASCAR, and F1 hasn't started then either. So, yeah, I like it. That would be a way to get IndyCar. And look, you start the race at, 3 Eastern? Fox doesn't have the Super Bowl, so you could have a 2-3 hour window. Super Bowl coverage where I actually want to watch doesn't start till 6 or 6:15. Kickoff is around 6:30 Eastern. So you could start the race as late as 3, even 4 o'clock. As long as it finishes by 6, you're good.
Yeah, and if you wanted to start it even earlier, if it wanted to be a noon start, it kind of stinks for locals, but, it's around people's homes. They can go out in their pajamas and watch it on their back deck type thing. So it's built for TV anyway, which is what our thinking is with this. So I think it's, at least in my opinion, our opinion, it's a great idea. Now, will it go anywhere? Who knows? But if you're talking about starting early the season and you're starting before Daytona, what better way to start the season than on Super Bowl Sunday at Thermal where you're not reliant on a ton of people at the race?
Or that'd also be a good date for my Cancun Grand Prix because it'd be on Central Time, I believe, and obviously the weather would cooperate. This from TGL_studios talking about competing against the NFL. College football owns Saturday, can't really avoid football. The sport can't create any storylines from February to August that keeps viewers engaged. That's on them. And Thompson 419 said, please repeat for all those who want series that are even less popular than NASCAR to go head to head with the NFL. Look, it doesn't work. And IndyCar got the results, right? Nashville to Nashville year over year, ending Labor Day weekend versus ending week 2 of the NFL season. And you went, 3 times up in ratings? I mean, it was astounding, but also not unexpected whatsoever.
Not at all. And I think there's more and more IndyCar fans that have realized that over the years, or maybe there are people just aren't as loud about it, is yeah, IndyCar, just nothing is going to succeed going against the NFL. You're not. And not just on TV, but you lose people actually going to races once the NFL is back. So, and the one poster mentioned it, you go against college football on Saturday. It's not like, we'll just have the races on Saturday, because college football is the second most popular sport in the United States. So, either way you lose. I think, I know there's always people out there, well, IndyCar should be racing until into October. It doesn't make sense for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, you'll get owned in the ratings, and we're seeing that from NASCAR right now.
Elsewhere, I posted, would you prefer IndyCar race in Mexico City or Washington, D.C. in 2026? Several replies. Lynn_IndyCar, like to see both. Mexico City, multi-year contract. Washington, D.C., one-off to celebrate 250th anniversary of our country. I mean, yes, I agree. That's the best case, perfect scenario. I don't think we'll get both because this is IndyCar. NK Harden said, even if it's a one and done in D.C. versus multi-year with Mexico City, D.C. is still the answer. Not a single event IndyCar could dream up would generate half as much buzz or publicity as a race in D.C. on the 250th anniversary of America. It needs to be around the National Mall, though. And that's the key, right? If it's not, it'll kind of be a letdown.
Yeah, I mean, the backdrop and everything, it can't be a parking lot racetrack. I would say, you could go around, FedEx Field, but that's, not D.C., where the Commanders play.
No,
so
it's in Virginia.
It has to be in the heart
Maryland.
of D.C., and I just don't know how realistic that is.
Mom 2X2002 said both. My daughter's moving to D.C. in January. Her reply when I said you mentioned it in the podcast was, shut the F up, Mom. That would be awesome. Zoko Chini said Mexico. Poet Shevchenko, if it meant Mexico City would be amicable to a delay to 2027, I think America 250-mile race for America's 250th birthday one-off would be pretty big. Kristen Rudisell said Mexico. Tyler Wong 65, Mexico City. Tommy the Treat 01 said Mexico hands down. Pato needs a home race. And Brady BC3. Personally, I think being a part of the 250-year celebration in D.C. is almost too big to pass on. Mexico is a must, but I'm okay if it does not happen until 2027. Look, if you could guarantee me that Mexico would happen in 2027 if D.C. happens in 2026, I'd be all in. But I just don't believe that. And then finally, which track would you prefer to be the IndyCar season finale in 2026? I posted this because I knew the results would be very skewed. It's even more skewed than I expected. Nashville, and this poll technically still open as we're recording just for 2 more hours, so probably not by the time you're listening. But 92.8% said Nashville, 7.2% said Laguna Seca, DJ_Maldonado, and not the street course, Nashville Oval. Lynn_IndyCar said, I have no problem with Laguna Seca being the final race. Probably in their contract renewal, IndyCar fans need to understand that not too many tracks are winning an IndyCar race and paying a 7-figure sanctioning fee to IndyCar. Business side to the sport. Yes, and also you're based in California, so of course you're going to want a closer race. I understand that aspect. Tyler Wong, 65, said Nashville Music City. CJ32 said the people have spoken. Howard 2112. I just enjoy the season finale on oval. It could be any oval. The one exception I would make is if it's Long Beach or St. Pete were finales, but they have date equity where they are, which St. Pete was the finale in 2021. Is that right?
Or was it 2020?
I can't remember. I mean, that was obviously due to COVID. It was a clear.
The COVID year was 2020, right? So,
yeah, and they didn't have the race in 2020. So actually, no, it was Long Beach that was the final race.
Yes.
In 2020. And then in 2021. Long Beach didn't run in 2020. It was St. Pete in 2020. So that's why I'm getting it both mixed up. Elsewhere, Kirk_Fleener said Nashville season should end on an oval. Can't begin to compare Nashville/Laguna Seca. Nashville, no contest. CT317 jumps. Is this a serious question? Nashville on a Saturday night. And Back 9 Bourbon said Nashville at night. Yes, I would love Nashville at night, but that would mean you might be competing with college football. But look, you're going to have to on Labor Day weekend regardless. And then Chad_15 said it's a no-brainer, another short-sighted move. And that is, of course, if this happens. Also, IndyCar fan 25 said, don't let Mark Miles see this. He'll move it immediately. But all in all, thank you for the submissions on the mailbag. A lot of good stuff as we debate and await the 2026 IndyCar schedule. All right, news and notes time. Let's go back. Indy 44 had this. IndyCar Live has an off-season pass. $19.99 is the cost, and I believe that's the whole off-season. You get, they have new and exclusive stickers and send it a monthly vodcast, September through February. It includes all race coverage in 2022, 23, 24, and 25, and classic rewinds from the IndyCar archives for the U.S. You actually get more if you're international, so keep that in mind. Speaking of broadcast, Will Buxton, the IndyCar warm-up show, Tyler Wong pulled these numbers, got almost 100,000 viewers, 90,000 for the season, and Buxton said, really enjoyed putting that together. Very excited for its development into a longer format in 2026, which I find interesting.
Sweet. I would like, maybe, and then they could be pre-recorded, like long-form interviews during that portion.
Like a full hour.
Part of that warm-up.
The warm-up was great. Like if they could mix in 3 interviews instead of the 1, and like I enjoyed it. I thought it was a refreshing approach instead of just fully covering what's happening on track for a half hour. I just thought it was fun. It was different. It was laid back. I enjoyed it. Elsewhere,
I agree.
We
that half hour goes quick.
Yes,
commercials.
it does. That's the other thing. We talked about this, but Cusick Morgan Motorsports, they welcome Billy Morgan as a partner alongside Don Cusick. And I personally would like to thank Billy for helping set up the interview with Don Cusick. So congrats being promoted there. IndyCars in Arkansas, 321 IndyCar. They had an Alexander Rossi Ed Carpenter racing car on display, along with a Christian Rasmussen car on display. This is in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this was like in Bentonville, because I see a Walton's store behind, which would be Bentonville, because that Walmart founded in Bentonville, Arkansas. Either way, though, yeah, you said Little Rock. Yeah, that was my first thought. I don't know if you're gonna have a Little Rock street race, but hey, who knows? This is an official in Markham who had some pretty choice comments. Actually, no, this is a motorsports writer, to be clear. But Scott Stinson, who lives in Markham, said, I don't think I'm being overly dramatic when I say that plopping an IndyCar race in the middle of that neighborhood will fall somewhere between seriously disruptive and totally chaotic for those who live, work, and commute nearby. Well, you're talking about one weekday.
Every street race?
Yes. I don't know. People get upset. I get it, but it just seems silly to me.
If it's an economic boom to the economy, of which we don't know yet, but if it is, like a couple weeks of inconvenience, is it worth it? For some people it is. Some people it isn't.
Yes. Moving on, Tony Kanaan, Scott Dixon will be racing at Goodwood this weekend. It's Kanaan's first trip to be racing there, so that's pretty exciting. Congrats to Marcus Ericsson and his new wife, Iris. Cheers to them. IMS Museum posted this. I didn't know this, but from 1924 to 1936, winners of the Indianapolis 500 received a crown. This is pre-Borg Warner Trophy.
How nice.
Looked pretty cool. Very royal. Yeah, right? And then
it's the opposite of how the Indy 500 feels now, right?
Yes, very much so.
Like, it's prestigious. It's not royal.
No, it's Americana. And then this is frustrating. A priceless IndyCar racing helmet that was worn by Greg Moore was stolen from the BC Sports Hall of Fame galleries.
Have they found that yet?
Not to my knowledge. They want people to contact Vancouver Police Department's non-emergency line if you have any info on the theft, or BC Sports Hall. Yes, hopefully they find that. It's just not cool. Not cool at all.
Agreed.
Anything that we missed?
I don't think so. It wasn't last week's deluge of news, but
No.
it had a lot to talk about this week, and hopefully it continues through the off season. We just need a steady trickle of news and rumors and all that to make it through the off season.
Here's a little bit of IndyCar adjacent news. Graham Rahal's sister-in-law, Brittany Force, is retiring from the NHRA after this season to start a family. So congrats to her on a great career. And I think with that, we're time for Tweets of the Week, and it's just one. And Adam Stern pulled this. A man was arrested for driving a Formula One car on the highway. For 6 years, he roamed the Czech Republic's highways unhindered in his single-seater, but his glory days are now over. Now,
6 years, Caleb.
My understanding is someone did say that actually it is an F2 car painted like an F1 car. But how did he pull that off? Like it looks like a Ferrari F1 car?
I mean, is it a new law that it became illegal? Like, how did he go 6 years without getting in trouble?
I don't know. I don't understand.
So many questions.
Right? So many questions.
Hey, he had quite the run.
That he did, and that run is now over. All right. Exactly. With that, time for our random split air driver of the week.
All right, I'm not sure if we've done this guy yet or not, but he's not on my list, so now he'll officially be on the list, we go to the early days of kart and Project Kart with Domenico Sciatarella.
Who?
A Domenico Sciatarella, a native of Milan. I know you and the wife travel to Milan a lot for those fashion shows.
Yeah.
You guys are busy, too.
You mean Milan, Indiana?
Yeah, Milan, Indiana, if you know, you know. To go to the high school. Is that where the Hall of Fame is?
They have a
basketball Hall of Fame.
No, that's in Newcastle, but they do have the Milan Museum there.
But you can go to the gym, right?
The Hoosier Gym is in Greencastle. No, is it Greencastle? I feel shame for not knowing this. Knightstown. Knightstown.
You know, based on the movie Hoosiers.
Yes.
With the Milan. But anyway, no, that's not that Milan. We're talking about Milan, fancy Milan in Italy. And Mimo is what they called him. Domenico Luca Sciatarella, nicknamed Mimo. He raced in several kart races over the course of 3 seasons, most notably for our feature here in 1998 for Project Kart, which was formerly Project Indy until the split. But in 1998, Project Kart raced one race at Long Beach that season, finished 16th in that race. Otherwise, he did this was after his Formula One career, in which he made 6 starts, and including his final race, which is the 1995 Monaco Grand Prix, raced for Simtech.
MTV Simtech Ford. I remember those F1 cars.
Yeah.
Iconic.
So, he did that in the MTV Simtech Ford in 94/95. And then the same year he was doing Project Indy. So this is interesting. So 94/95, he raced in a combined 6 Formula One events, but also a combined 4 then IndyCar events in 94/95. So, I mean, I can't remember the last time somebody raced in both series in 1 year. Can you?
No. I mean
Theo Pourchaire didn't race in Formula One.
Bourdais, you know what?
IndyCar?
Sebastian Bourdais did. Because remember, he started at Scuderia Toro Rosso and then finished at Dale Coyne Racing in, 2009? Is that the year? I think it was 2009.
Potentially. But yeah, this was this guy, 94/95, and then in 1998, he was just IndyCar and just kart, did one race at Long Beach. After that, he did some GT, some 24-hour Le Mans. He did some what is called an International Superstars series. He even did a Whelen Euro series in 2015 in NASCAR, where he raced 2 races at Circuit de Valencia in Spain.
Interesting circuit choice there.
Right? So, but overall, going back to his Champ Car kart career, 5 races run over 3 years. His first race was the 94 Molson Indy Toronto. His last race, the 1998 the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, that 16th at Long Beach was tied for his best finish in his kart career. Mid-Ohio in 1994, also a 16th place. Still around, 57 years old, a native of Milan, Italy, not Milan, Indiana. Domenico Sciatarella, this week's random split era driver of the week.
And I looked it up in Bourdais, 2009, 2008 and 9 is with Scuderia Toro Rosso, and then he was dropped, I think, like halfway through that season, and then he was back in IndyCar in 2011. So there was a gap. So, I'm not sure. It's a great trivia question. Perhaps I'm trying to think of, like kart days, like Cristiano D'Amata, Alex Zanardi, Juan Montoya. Like, would they have overlapped? I doubt it.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do some research. Maybe we'll get an answer.
D'Amata did not.
We'll talk about it next week.
I'm looking it up now.
We'll ask AI. AI sometimes knows.
Yeah. Have you asked AI stuff and just gotten the most ridiculous false information? Like it's like laughably wrong? Because that's been my experience.
So for every intelligent, quote unquote, result you get from AI, you can get some terrible ones.
Yes. I guess that's my point. Montoya, I don't think also had any crossover as well because he was in kart 99, 2000, obviously returned to IndyCar in 2014, and then his F1 had no crossover whatsoever. That was separate. So, yeah, I don't know. Great question. Someone will probably respond with the results on that. I'm going to look up Alex Zanardi, and then I'm going to give it up because I don't think I'm going to get the
long list of.
Yeah, Zanardi was in F1 in 99, and then was in F1 91, 2, 3, and 4, and then he was in kart 96, 97, 98, and then back in 2001. So no carryover either. Fascinating trivia question. I'm sure someone smarter than us will know the answer almost immediately when we talk about it next week.
Now, here's something that AI came up with, and see if this jogs your memory. Marcus Ericsson in 2019. He was competing full-time in the IndyCar Series, but participated in the Belgian Grand Prix as a reserve driver. But I don't think he drove in the Belgian Grand Prix.
He didn't drive in the race.
Right. He couldn't race it. He didn't race at Portland because he had to go be the reserve driver.
Yes.
But he didn't race in that race. So that's somebody that doesn't answer our question, but got close. But we'll have to continue to do some research on that.
Plenty of time in the offseason to figure this out, right?
Yeah. We will delve into it. And for now, Domenico Sciatarella, the last guy that we know of to have raced in Formula One and kart in the same year.
And I'm sure we butcher that pronunciation.
Oh, absolutely. For sure.
No doubt on that.
We'll just call him Memo, because apparently that's what a lot of people call him.
Yes. All right, so we'll be back next week with the latest and greatest in IndyCar news. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. Thanks for joining us on another edition of New Track Record Podcast.